Let's talk about Jurgen Klopp. Now, the Liverpool legend has won everything there is to win with us, taking us to new heights we never thought we could get to. Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues, FA Cups, Carabao Cups, he's done it all with us. But let's talk about the inevitable Klopp curse. It happened at Dortmund, it's the 7-year curse, and we're in the 7th season now, Liverpool. Obviously, it was probably one of our worst seasons under Klopp. Strong run towards the end has sort of brought it back. But, you know, and with interest of him wanting to manage the German national team one day, he's probably not going to retire at Liverpool like Sir Alex did. There probably is another step in his career at some point. So let's talk about what happened if Jurgen Klopp was to be sacked from Liverpool or walk away, and who we think should be replacing him. Now, this is just a hypothetical situation right now, but yeah. So, first pick, we got Steven Gerrard. Now, not all these are going to be my picks. They're going to be my picks along with those who are linked with the job. Obviously, he's going to be linked with the job because of his time as a former player with us, captaining us, leading us to European glory. One of our most biggest legends, if not best player ever. Obviously, from a managerial point of view, he had an amazing time up in Rangers, returning them to the top of the Scottish leagues. I think he really earned a lot of respect. He didn't go straight for that Premier League job. He sort of achieved somewhat, he didn't do, a Lampard or something like that. But then he took that step to the Premier League. Rightly so, I think, of Villa, but it didn't work out. I think it was a promising project, but ultimately it didn't work out for him. And I think for that reason, I wouldn't have him as Liverpool manager because he hasn't proved it in the Premier League. I think if he goes and proves it, in the Premier League again, or takes over a Championship side and gets them promoted and does it in the Premier League, we can talk about that. But until then, Steven Gerrard is a no from me. Second pick is this man. Now, Julian Nagelsmann is probably one of the most, probably one of the most high-profile managers in Europe right now. I think, his stock would have dropped a bit since leaving Dortmund, but obviously, he's an incredible manager. Probably wrongly sacked from Bayern Munich. I mean, so he started his career. Obviously, you might think he's quite young, and he had to retire from playing football at a young age. So he became a coach at Hoffenheim, and then eventually taking their first team over, and actually leading them into the top four under his tenure. So already immediate success in the Bundesliga. Like you can see there, led them to third. And, it just shows to show his sort of how good he was, the fact that they're now almost at the bottom of the table. Under him, they're almost always, up there. Then, obviously, that attracted interest from RB Leipzig. Obviously, sort of a project of the Red Bull brand. He sort of had more control. He was able to, run that club sort of from top to bottom. He created something very special there from a club that, was very new to football. It had only just been created. And, highlight of his time there, Champions League semi-final the other year. Obviously, the amount of players they've brought through there. Timo Werner, Haidara, Kanate, Upamecano, just name a few. He really did an incredible job there, obviously attracting the attention of Bayern Munich. His time at Bayern was mixed. He didn't dominate the league in a Hansi Flick sort of way, but he beat PSG in the Champions League and didn't concede a goal over two legs to Messi, Neymar, and Mbappe. So they look pretty dominant. Obviously sacked, but probably more to do with clashing with the higher ups rather than results. Which obviously led to him being sacked from Bayern Munich, as I mentioned before. But since then, obviously, under Thomas Tuchel, they've looked worse. So, if anything, that just sort of proves how good Nagelsmann really was. Now, the only thing with Nagelsmann is, obviously, Klopp is still in a job. This is hypothetically. But right now, he's got rumoured interest from sort of Spurs, potentially Chelsea. There's other clubs sniffing around. So, potentially, this guy might not be available soon. But, if Klopp was to leave right now, Nagelsmann would probably be one of my top picks. I think his style of football is very similar to Jurgen Klopp, sort of part of that Ralph Rangnick brand. So yeah. And like I said, rumoured interest from Chelsea as well, so he might not be available when we want him, but, you know. Right, third pick, Xabi Alonso. Now, I think he kind of mixes, he's kind of a mix between the Gerrard and the Nagelsmann in terms of, yes, he's a former player with us, so yes, he's like the Gerrard in that way, but he also plays a good brand of football. Now, he typically goes for a 4-3-3. But as you can see, he doesn't have the most experience, but he was a coach at Real Madrid, not a manager, just a coach for the under-14s, before getting a manager role at Real Sociedad B, which he got them promoted to the top division during his time there. Before leaving to Bayer Leverkusen, now he took them from a relegation battle up into the top 4 positions now in Bundesliga, and took them again. They're still in the Europa League into the semi-finals. So he's been very successful in a short amount of time, in less than a year at Leverkusen. He's really rejuvenated that club. I think I'd like to see him be at Leverkusen longer, or, dip his toe somewhere else in football. Maybe not the Premier League, but whether that be, La Liga or Italy or something like that before he gets a Liverpool job. But I think he's a very, very strong contender, and like I said, good brand of football. He's young, former Liverpool player as well. He's got that sort of, he commands respect. And my sort of final option is Luis Enrique. Now with Luis Enrique, obviously he's got quite a stacked CV with only a few amount of clubs. Obviously he was at Roma for a time. He was at Celta Vigo for a time. Sorry, I think that's Eibar actually, not Celta Vigo. But before obviously going to Barcelona, where he won the Champions League, which Barca haven't done in quite a few years. But, he won the Champions League, he won La Liga. But I think you do have to consider the team he had around him at that point. Messi's, Iniesta's, Xavi's. But I think, again, a very strong manager who sort of cultivates success. He demands winning. And then obviously after Barcelona, he took over the Spanish national team just before, obviously, in preparation for the Qatar World Cup had just passed. Spain obviously didn't progress far in that tournament, but I think if you watched it, you knew, like games against Costa Rica, they played a good brand of football. They played some exciting attacking football. They scored a lot of goals. So I think in a tournament it's a bit unlucky, but I think ultimately he was, I think he was actually quite good for Spain. But obviously again, similar to Nagelsmann, he's got links currently with Chelsea, although currently Chelsea are favourites to sign Pochettino as their next manager. But, there's going to be those top European clubs sniffing around. So now we've gone through all those managers, I thought I'd give you sort of my review, my overview, who I'd choose. So if it was up to me, again, I think Xabi Alonso, like I said, I love Xabi Alonso. I think, obviously former Liverpool player, still connected with the club, playing in, sort of charity games. But I think I'd like a little bit more time for him. I'd like him to either probably win something at Bayer Leverkusen, potentially, or get close, or manage another club where he gets success. I just think he needs that little bit more experience, a little bit more, before making that jump to such a giant like Liverpool. So my actual choice would be Julian Nagelsmann. Now, like I said, he is young. He doesn't have Premier League experience, but I don't think you need that. Look at Jurgen Klopp. He came from, Mainz, came from Dortmund. There's two clubs who, no Premier League experience. You look at Pep Guardiola, no Premier League experience. So you can do it just from coming from the Bundesliga, or, not managing in the Prem before. I think Nagelsmann plays quite a fluid type of football. I think, he works really well with the fullbacks. You look at how he, what he did with Ben Pavard at Bayern. I think he could work really well with Trent, especially. Again, he's part of that sort of. He's sort of a son of that Ranić style of football in Germany. Obviously, you've got Nagelsmann, Klopp, Hasenhüttl. Tuchel, these type of people who sort of, that sort of gegenpress style of football. Um, I think he's ready for that step up to the Premier League, and I think Liverpool would do really well, especially the way he sort of grows talent and scouts talent and acquires talent. So yeah, Julian Nagelsmann will be my pick for the next